Thank you for joining us here today. So the topic of today's webinar here is really just talking about home shows, the best practices and tips to maximize your lead generation efforts at the home shows. So I'll actually even broaden that a little bit here. I was actually thinking prior to this meeting, I'm like, well, who says it has to be just a home show, which I'll get into as a question for you, Chris, here as well. But today I'm joined by Chris, and he's one of the consultants over at Tony Hoty's organization here as well. So just well-renowned within the industry, just as a consultant with his wealth of knowledge in canvassing and events, just how to be able to put together a really good event that's going to really maximize the amount of leads that you get out of that event. So it's not always about the quantity of leads that you get out of there, but the quality, the appointments that you get out of there. And there's so many moving pieces when it comes to an event. There's obviously the people that are staffing it, the conversations that they have, how do you get them into the booth, and so forth. So that's what we're going to tackle today. I'm Sean Connors with Contractor Appointments. So we do revenue share, lead generation, online lead generation for contractors. So that's a little bit about me. Chris, I'm going to open it up to you. Can you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Hello, everybody. And Sean, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I've been in the home improvement industry for a long time. I work for Tony Hoty. Anybody that knows Tony Hoty knows he's been around for a lot longer than I have, we typically focus on lead generation. I do training in canvas, events, brand ambassador, that kind of stuff. And I used to work for a large home improvement company. I don't know if I should name them or not, but I did for a really long time, and had as many as 50 or 60 reps working under me. So kind of seen it all over the years, and back in 2018, Tony Hoty and I started talking, and I ended up going with him full-time, training in canvas, events, retail, brand ambassador, that kind of stuff. And best decision I ever made.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for joining me today. And I'll rattle the kind of the format of this, webinar is I'll kind of rattle off some questions to you as I kind of share with you earlier.
Yeah.
And yeah,
hopefully I'm going to know the answers to those questions.
Hopefully. Yeah. Haven't had anyone pass on a question yet, but you're more than welcome to be the first. So the first question I had for you here was just, it's a pre-marketing prior to the home show. So I didn't actually share that question with you because you kind of brought it up. But how do you get people into your booth? How do you get the attention into your booth to grab attention from your current list of contacts in your database to get them to actually come to your show? How do you create, really that as a starting point? So let's talk there.
Yeah, that's a great question because, a lot of people I find, and I think my boy Tony Hoty would agree with me, that some companies tend to wing the home show. They just assume there's going to be so many people there that people are just going to wander into your booth. And we always have this, like when we do training, we have a 7-step process. And the first step is always going to be engagement, right? How do we get people into the booth? And it doesn't have to start at the show. It can start before the show. So we've done all kinds of stuff. Like you mentioned, most companies have an email list, a mailing list, things like that, where you can promote the big show. But how are you promoting it? Like we believe in attraction, right? So attraction versus pursuit. That's something that we always say. So, I mean, we've done a lot of things that have driven people to the booth. Like one time we had a slot machine set up in the booth, and Tony sent his mailing list these little tokens, come to our booth at the home show and see if you put your token in the slot machine and, see if you win the prize. I think that prize was cash, which cash will drive people to your booth, right? We've done things like a treasure chest, get people a key, right? And they come and see if their key opens the treasure chest. You can do it with mailing, you can do it with email. Some people are always nervous about greeting people in the parking lot or at the front door. We always say it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, right? But maybe you're handing out tokens to people in the parking lot on the way in, but but it could start weeks before where you're sending stuff out and just trying to get people to literally come to your booth. I just did a show this weekend, and people were coming to see a particular company because they sent them a ticket to the show. The ticket was like $10, and they bought a bunch of tickets and mailed them out to people, So there's all different ways you can do it.
Well, I think that's a great way to be able to, just like you said, the more people that are at your booth, the more people want to actually come to it as well. So I think at the end of the day, like, how do you make sure that your show is going to be successful, to begin with? So, and not just expect people to show up that are going to show up. So try to drive some people there already. So, so obviously trying to get people and drive traffic from your current list. One of the things that we had talked about here too, is that a lot of companies have that email list or that mailing list, but they don't mail to them or email them very often anyway. So This is just a great one-off for multiple emails. Hey, we're going to be at the home show. Get to your emails and content in front of them right away here too. And I think having some other incentive, like you said, of like, here's, your, key or whatever it is to try to get them there, or even a ticket to the home show to come meet us directly. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, you can even like come get your scratch off ticket or something like that. You could have tell them to come to the booth so they can see what they win, that kind of stuff.
Yep. You're often giving away something anyway. Why not, try to, not just the people there, but get other people there as well. Old leads, all that good stuff. Yep.
Yeah, it starts before the home show starts,
Yep.
I'd say a funny attraction versus pursuit. I just did this huge home show in Kansas, really big. A lot of people came through this show, and everybody was worried because the football playoffs were that weekend. And I was like 30 miles outside of Kansas City, so the Chiefs were playing too. So everybody was like, "Oh man, what are we going to do with football?" Well, the people I was working with, they had a TV screen where they had like, products going by on the screen and stuff. They hooked it up so they had the playoff games on the TV. So people were just walking into the booth to watch the football game, but we attracted them in.
Yep.
We weren't like barking at them as they were walking by. They just like walked into the booth. What's the score?
Yep. Well, I think that, again, anything you can do to try to pull them in as much as possible, especially home shows that are going on a Sunday or all that here too. Yeah. Put a sports, some sports on there if you can.
Whatever.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So obviously that's going after your current, trying to get people there, but what about the people that are already there? And, you might be on a fast aisle and people are just cruising down there. They might have somewhere to go, or they came here for a specific reason and they're just wandering, or they're walking fast. How do you kind of grab people's attention to be able to direct them into your booth when they might not be interested in your service, your product? That might be part of it, but they might have some other where to go. So how do you kind of get them into your booth when there's just so much people vying for their attention?
It's funny because you just mentioned a fast aisle. I was just on a fast aisle this past week, and it was one of the things that's funny. If you go to a home show, you see when people show up, we find they tend to go down the middle aisle kind of fast, and then they kind of branch out and kind of go around, and they start to slow down. So, yeah, I mean, if you're on that middle aisle and they're kind of blasting past you, it could be tough. The company I worked with, one of the things I got them to do is we love this laminate. It's a laminate. It's got I actually have just, I'm going to hold this up so you can kind of see it. It's in our, but it's got all the products on it, right? That a company might offer. So we have that laminate. One of the things I found as we were standing like on the booth, as people are coming by, right? That laminate would actually kind of slow people down a little bit. They would kind of look at the product. So we asked them questions as they're coming by, but that kind of thing, like there was someone else on that aisle that was throwing frisbees at people, and people were getting nailed with frisbees, but we found like, and that laminate does a lot of things for us, but like showing them that actually slowed a lot of people down a little bit. They would actually stop and look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we have we'll ask questions like, hey, if you want a contest or a makeover contest or a sweepstakes, which one of these products might you be thinking about? And they go, well, I don't know, maybe Windows. Then that kind of, so we've slowed them down and we kind of isolated a product by doing that. But you're right. It can be hard. I mean, location is important at a home show. And a lot of that comes from experience. The more you do the show, the more you know where you want to be.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, there's the benefit of being, front and center to the entrance.
Mhm.
And then there's the negatives that come with that as well. So you kind of have to be able to get to know the home show that you're at, and just the traffic patterns that are coming in. So,
Mhm.
and as far as being able to, like, going at the laminate side of things, are you recommending handing that over to a customer so they kind of take it, and
So
or is
some
it?
of them do. Yeah,
Yeah.
some of them take it when you hold it out, we like our first two steps are engage, like we just talked about, get people to the show, and then qualify them. So when we're showing them the laminate, we kind of hold it out, and we'll say, hey, where'd your folks come from? We might say something like that, right? And hopefully they say an area where they're kind of in your service area, right? Like, that you can serve them. And then, oh, that's great. You live in Bedford Falls. How long have you owned your home? Oh, we've owned it for like 20 years. So now they're homeowners in your market area, and you have that laminate that they're looking at. And then instead of saying like, well, what projects are you thinking of doing? You kind of show them that laminate, and, right. And say, well, however you want to say it, are one of these projects on the list? Or I like this sweepstakes. If you want a sweepstakes, which one of these would you do? And hopefully they're isolating a product that you actually do,
Yeah.
Like if you're a window company and you ask if they're having, what do you have? Oh, I want to do a deck. Well, now you can't help them,
You pull back the laminate from them and say, keep moving.
Yeah, keep going. You're out of here, Have some candy. Everybody has candy at the home shows, right? All right. Well, all I can offer you is some free candy. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's kind of slowing them down, not hitting them with frisbees, not carnival barking at them. Hey, folks, thanks for coming. Where'd you come from? Yeah, it's a great opening question.
Yep.
Some companies actually have a map of their service area, because the service area is so far. Like I worked in New Orleans, and the sales reps will travel like 3 hours to go to an appointment. But there are people at the shows that live more than 3 hours away. So still not in the service area.
Well, that's part of the qualification there too, is you also it's spending quality time with quality people. If you only have 3 people at your booth, and 2 of them are, you want to make sure that you're not talking with someone who you can't service them anyway. They're, they're way outside the metro.
Right.
And, make sure that there's awareness there too.
There is a time you have to cut and run when you realize, like, I can't help this person.
Yeah.
And they want to talk to me about the Kansas City Chiefs, but there's 10 other people walking by, so that's another skill too, is moving on to the, next potential customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your experience, I mean, with, obviously there's the slot machine giveaways, and a lot of companies do sweepstakes offerings to kind of at shows and different online activities there. Anything that you've seen kind of work better? Sweepstakes kind of, fizzling out? Is the, put your name in a drawing fizzling out? Is there certain, kind of promotions that people are more readily available to, like, I'll put my name in the hat for this, or whatever that looks like?
Yeah. I mean, you have to know that some sweepstakes are not, a lot of them actually are probably not leads, right? It's a kid that filled it out because they want to try to win the TV that you're raffling off, or whatever it is. I prefer the stuff we talked about, like the slot machine, the treasure chest. It's bringing in past customers, hopefully, to do it. When we do training, we have a manual. We actually have pictures in a manual of a line of people waiting to try their key in the treasure chest. So I mean, sweepstakes are part of the deal. But again, it's also like everybody does some form of a sweepstakes. Usually, what can you do to be different than everybody else?
Well, I love the key idea, because then, I mean, honestly, just like you said with the laminate, you can hand that over to a customer in the hallway, like, hey, you want to try this? You can try your hand at winning $1,000, or whatever that is. But when it comes to the promotion, have you seen, hey, I'm going to give away cash for a promotion versus win a potential $10,000 bathroom remodel, one working better than the other? Obviously, a bathroom remodel, you might go and say, well, I do need a bathroom, so why not try to win it? or else you might get somebody who, is that even something that they're like, well, I'm never going to, I'm a qualified buyer and I know I'm going to pay for my bathroom anyway. I don't want to give you my name and number.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you're giving away a $10,000 bath makeover and the people don't want to do baths, they're probably not going to be interested. But if you're giving away $100, then more people might be interested in winning cash,
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, that may generate, if it's specific to like baths or windows and they're not going to do it, they're probably not going to care. But if they can win a TV or a PlayStation or whatever, they're gonna, you're probably going to get more people coming through to do that,
Yep, absolutely. And when doing like a key thing and you're handing that stuff out, or you're requiring people to fill out a lead form before they
Well,
try to open the box, or you're just going, here's a key, open it, and you're just trying to get people engaged at the booth.
we're trying to get them engaged at the booth. Like when there's a line, we're standing there with our clipboards, like getting into our iPads, whatever it is, and getting information from them,
Yep.
That's a whole another good topic too, is getting information from people. Like,
yeah,
I see it all the time. Too many reps are asking for permission. Can I have your name? Can I have your phone number? No, just start asking, and what was your name and where are you coming from? Just start taking the information down, and people will tend to give it to you.
Yep.
Assume the appointment.
Yep. That's awesome. And you had kind of mentioned something previously here too, is that this idea of being able to, not start that lead form immediately. When you first get somebody who goes, yeah, we're actually looking at doing a bath on that sheet here. How do you all right, awesome. What's your first name and last name? And you just dive right into the sale, booking that appointment right there. How do you kind of build more rapport into the value of, hey, I'm actually, yes, we do baths. You want a bath? Let me, let's talk about that before I send somebody out.
If anybody watching this takes, if you take one thing away from what we're talking about today, something I see like around the country, home shows, retail, regular events, canvas, people tend to, we said we're going to engage them, right? We're going to qualify. We know they're a homeowner in our service area. We've isolated a product. A lot of reps are going to immediately go into the value of the visit, right? Why we should come out and look at their windows. But that's a mistake. We're jumping the gun. After we isolate that product, we need to ask them, well, okay, so you said you would do windows. Windows would be your first thing. Why? And I go, well, my windows are old. Oh, yeah. How many windows do you have? We have about 10 windows. What kind you have? Oh, well, the windows are vinyl. Oh, so they must be drafty. Oh, yeah, they're all drafty. So you kind of get into a conversation with them about the pain points. Pain points are so important. And people think you care when you start asking them about that. If you find out they might get windows and you jump right into selling them on the appointment, it's very salesy,
Yeah.
But just asking them what's going on with your windows, and then they start telling you what's wrong with the windows or the roof or the siding or whatever it is, elicit that pain. And then you kind of say something like, well, it's great that you came out today, because then you do your value of the visit and you just start getting their information, right? You don't ask them for it. You just start taking it down.
Yep.
But the biggest thing is elicit the pain before you're closing for the appointment. And that's a mistake that so many reps make, especially at a slow show, right? It's really slow. Somebody comes through, they mention windows, and now you have commission breath and you're jumping all over them, right? Trying to sign them up. And, the process is so important. Elicit the pain, close later for the appointment.
Well, I think that's, again, you have to make people feel like they're valued and that you've actually heard them out too. And that's part of that conversation of kind of understanding their pain points, understanding what they even need prior to, and you may know what they need before they do, on that whole process. But, we can get too scripted with some of the rebuttals, and on that stuff. I think that does lead into this point of, as you mentioned with commission breath. I think like the best way to compensate or incentivize those people in the booth, your brand ambassadors who are sitting out there at the booth, is it per lead? Is it per set appointment? Is it, a commission on the sale at the end of the day? Like it's all over the board,
Yeah.
normally, and you might have sales reps sitting at the booth too. So what does that look like? Kind of best practices that you've seen work better than others?
We believe, like I believe in it's, I mean, there's hourly pay, but then there's demos. You pay them per demo, and they should have an events rep should have a demo goal, whatever. Maybe it's one demo for every 10 hours worked. On a home show, they should get more demos, right? There should hopefully be more people coming through. But in general, I was always raised in the paying per demo, that model, and maybe they do get 1% of sales or something along those lines over a certain amount. They should have benchmarks that they have to hit. Like if you're not within your hours per demo, then maybe you don't qualify for the bonus. I also believe in putting spiffs on. Like, hey, if someone's goal is 15 leads for the home show, well, maybe you give them something like $50 or $100 if they hit their 15 leads for the home show. It gives them something to work towards. Incentives. But in general, I would say hourly pay plus demos plus sales. How much should the demo be? I mean, some companies pay $20 a demo. Some companies pay $75 a demo. It kind of depends on what your finances are at your company. That's the hardest question to answer. How much should I pay?
Yeah. Well, I think it's different in different demographics, but I think, we see all the time. I mean, most, your winner companies all in marketing costs trying to stay under 15%. And right. I personally, I talk with marketing managers all the time. Online lead generation, we're normally at the higher end of that side of things, but right. And all the things it is to process, and home shows are normally at the lower end, but you might want to pay your people at the home show really well, pay them really well, $100 a demo, and make them want to be there. Right. So, I mean, I think that's some of the things, about this here too, is anytime you can get people to want to be, working the home show, which is often hours that you don't want to work or your sales reps don't want to work or anyone else in the company. So how can you, keep really good people employed is always a big thing there too.
It could also be escalating, like the more demos you get, the more money you get per demo, things like that. Because the other thing too is we do want to write. I know at a home show sometimes it's frenzied, it's busy. There might be a lot of people coming through, but we do want to write good leads too. Like, because you have to look at that too. What about the rep that gets 15 leads at the home show, but only 3 of them run? You got to dig into why those other 12 didn't run. Yep. That's not always the rep. Could be other issues.
Well, that's the hard thing about paying anyone on so much on the demo is that they cancel because X, and it's like their anticipated commission was $1,000 for the weekend or whatever it is, and it ends up being 200. That's demoralizing right there too. So those are other cultural aspects of it to kind of take into account there too.
Well, that's the highs and lows of our business, right? The rep's all excited. I got 15 leads. And then they don't really make a lot of money because only 3 of the leads ran. Yeah. So it's kind of like the speed bumps in our industry for the reps.
Yep. Absolutely. So have you seen companies pay just a really good base salary and do like an overall bonus structure just on the net sales or on like a month or anything like that versus doing any lead fees or to incentivize, just kind of take that incentive off the table?
If I had to get, I don't want to say guess, but my I don't know, educated guess from talking to people, most of them are doing hourly pay plus demos, I would think. But yeah, there are always some companies that do things differently that pay basically on sales. Also, especially who's working the booth? Are they event reps or, like you mentioned, sales reps? If sales reps are working the booth, that's a whole other thing,
Totally.
So it does kind of depend on is the rep in the booth running their own lead?
Yep.
that type of thing. Like some industries like solar, right? That's very common that the rep knocks on the door or goes to a show, generates the lead, and then actually runs the lead.
Yep.
So that
Absolutely.
all ties into it.
100%. Yeah, and that's I think there's benefits and negatives to having a sales rep at a at the actual show.
Can I tell you a quick story about that?
Oh,
Company I
absolutely.
just worked with, they said 2 years ago, I guess, they had the sales reps run the home show, and they generated about 40 leads. The next year, the same show, they had the events department was now built. They had event reps at the home show, and it went from 40 leads to like over 100 leads with the event reps as opposed to the sales reps,
Yep.
because the sales reps want to run leads that they think they can sell. If they don't think they can
Oh yeah,
sell it,
yeah.
they're
They're gonna overqualify them, and which it kind of goes back hand in hand of like, well, you have 40 quality demos, good customers, or 120. Is that still net out to the same amount of demos that are in net
right.
sales? But
I can tell you this: the sales went up about $200,000 with the home show reps, as opposed to the sales. Meanwhile, the sales reps are going to complain about the leads, but there were $200,000 more dollars in that. So
yep. Well, that's overall. I think that's always the fight and the tension between marketing qualification of the lead and the sales reps and demos. But
yep.
Separating them, it does make more sense at the end of the day.
Yeah, it does.
So I'm curious. So the other question I had for you here was just before we get into some other people's questions, which we got a couple here for you, is that what's your opinion about doing shows other than just the home shows, going and doing the nutrition show or the whatever shows that are at the convention centers nearest you, the small business expo, all that kind of stuff? Benefits and negatives. Obviously, people aren't in the home improvement buying window, but is there still a benefit to that? And what do you recommend?
Yeah, I just had this conversation with an events manager, and on one hand, I'm going to tell you it's a hard question to answer, because they'll say, should I do the beer festival? And it's like, I don't know. Have you done it before? Well, we did it last year, and everybody was drunk, and we didn't really get any sales out of it. I'm like, all right, so that's a show I probably might not do again. But then there are other shows that sometimes generate sales that you might not expect, like a boat show or a golf show or something like that. Or a friend of mine does runs. They set up booths at like 5Ks and things like that. And she does really well with that. So part of it's going to be trial and error, right? If you've done it in past years, it's not good, then
Yep.
If it's not crazy expensive, why not give it a try? And there are things you can do. Like I get it. Like if I'm into golf and I go to a golf show, I don't want to get, maybe in my mind, I don't want to get bothered by like a window company or a bathroom company or something like that. But maybe at that golf show, you kind of gear your stuff to the golf show. Maybe your contest is putting a ball into a hole, right? Maybe you have like those what do you call them, where you can take a picture, someone sticks their face through,
Sure,
one of those. Everybody wears golf clothes, or if it's a boat show, you dress like it's a boat, you have some kind of boat content, you can kind of get into the theme of. A friend of mine did a pirate show on Long Island, and everybody was wearing like eye patches, and they had a treasure chest at that show. So it may or may not be a home run, but at least if you gear yourself to that show, maybe number one, you're not going to annoy people. Number two, maybe you actually attract them into your booth.
Yeah. Well, you're different. Like in the home show, you're one of many roofing window companies or bath companies that are even at that one show. But if you're at the golf show and you're the only company with a bath trailer, you're going to get noticed. And if you can gear people to still come in watching the football game or doing something that's kind of getting them into the booth that's related, that could be a huge benefit.
We did a wine and cheese festival, and we had this huge jar filled with corks. It was like, guess how many corks are in the jar? That kind of stuff. Whatever it takes to attract people.
Oh, for sure.
And
So
keep records. Like someone will say, if someone says to me, I did a show last year, I don't know if I should do it again. The first question I ask is, was it good? How did you do? We did okay. All right. Well, and then we kind of dig into what they did at that show. Like if they
mhm.
were at a golf show and they didn't have a golf theme and they did okay, I'd say, okay, do it again this year and have a golf theme and see if it's even better.
Yep.
If they did a show last year and got 0 leads and it's $1,000 to do the show, I might say it's not a great idea to do it again.
Oh,
It
totally.
depends.
Well, no, that's yeah, it's being able to determine, and sometimes it's just like you said, it's trial and error of this show was a bomb, and we could have done it differently. Let's try it again, or it's a bomb, and like it's never going to be good because
You can also use your mailing list to create your own shows, like a wine and cheese at your office or something like that. Come to the office, wine and cheese, treasure chest.
yep.
You can create your own events.
Especially if you have a design center, you have a actual showroom.
Yeah,
Get people there.
100%.
Yep.
And get creative. Like places like by me, I live on Long Island, right? So I was telling this to a friend of mine. Like volunteer fire departments do things like they have comedy night, they have bands, they do things like that, and a few hundred people will show up, and it's a fundraiser. Yeah. Will they let you have a booth if you pay them for the space? And now you've got 300 people that they're there to see the band, but they may also speak to you if you're there. You can create your own events.
Well, that's I've got a realtor here locally that every fall they do free pumpkins for and they send out to their mailing list and social media that it's like, hey, come get a free pumpkin from everyone. Yeah, it just gets them to their office to go pick up a pumpkin, and you keep the the relationship going there too. So there's different ways to do it at different times during the year to get them to your place, which is all just you. So
one of my favorite a sales trainer that I grew up with is Tom Hopkins. He's pretty famous. Love Tom Hopkins, and he's a general sales trainer now, but he started out in real estate in California, and that was one of his things. Was he would actually give them away door to door, and he'd have kids dress up as ghosts and come with them, and they would give out pumpkins on Halloween, and that stuff became like known in his neighborhood. Became like a local legend.
There's your canvassing and tip for 2022 here is just go hand out a pie, or hand out maybe not a pie, maybe like a pumpkin would be better in that situation. But
if you trust putting a bunch of pumpkins in the back of a canvas van, I mean things can happen.
They're little pumpkins, the gourds.
Yeah.
So I've got some questions here for you. Cool. So Bobby was talking about asking just a question, kind of more of a sales question, but he was talking about home show leads. Is they often have, they're not getting an estimate just from you as a bath contractor or window contractor. They go, well, I've got 2 other companies behind me. When you're a one-call close company and you're automatically going to be competing with other companies, what's the best way to overcome that? So in your opinion?
Isn't that like the $1 million question in home improvements? How do I overcome that objection? I mean, this whole training course is what I talk about, killing the competition, right? I don't believe you should go in there and destroy your competitors or anything like that. But I think you need to be focused on your instant rewards, why they should move forward with you.
Yep.
I have a friend that'll tell people, look, hey, I get that you have other appointments. Give me their numbers. I'll cancel them for you. We'll move forward right now. Just use your best practices. It's that's the time for me on a home show lead. I want to get in first and then try to eliminate my competition.
Yep.
In a good way, not by saying, oh, you're going to meet with Bill. Did he get out of jail? You don't want to say things like that about your competitors, but like, look, I think we're great. You like the product. Let's move forward. And this way you don't have to meet with all those other people. We'll move forward and, you'll be good to go. So,
well, I think more and, a lot of bigger companies do use kind of a kill book as well of just like, absolutely. Hey, we've shopped the competition for you. So, and let me tell you a little, like, here's some more information about them specifically. It doesn't even have to be bad information. I was just reading a quote earlier today that was talking about, customers often don't buy the best product. They buy the one that they recognize the brand more and that is convenient to purchase. So if you
Right.
made their projects super convenient to purchase and they feel comfortable with you, then well, it's simpler just to go forward with you than go spend time with these other two companies. So,
Right.
that's the goal, is to try to build enough, credibility with the customer that you just made it a simple, seamless process that's going to make their life so much easier and better that I don't want to waste my time with the next people. So that's the goal. But
There are companies that do have those books where they've literally had every company in town come in, like say you're a window company, and price their windows. So
yeah,
they have books. They know what their competitors are charging.
yep,
It's very common. It's very common. Are they coming in, and then you show them, well, this is what they're going to charge you.
yeah. Well, they might be less, they might be more, and I think that's it. It doesn't have to be, and I highly recommend you never discredit anyone else in the your market, because they will do the same thing to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but the goal is, is your goal is to be able to make a seamless, simpler buying decision for that homeowner as best as possible. So if you can do it in that way, that's the best. But so
If
Joseph
you're
had a
ethical,
question.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you're
Yeah.
ethical and they like you, then you have a better chance of moving forward with them.
Yep. Absolutely. So this one kind of, next question from Joseph here kind of goes into the recruiting realm that you and I have talked about quite a bit. But
Oh
he
yeah.
asks us, what's the best way of finding people to work these booths, and finding and his secondary question is finding qualified people to work these booths. So if it's not the sales team, how do you find qualified brand ambassadors to be able to work these shows?
A friend of mine just had to a little while back. She had to let a rep go. They had a booth in a shopping mall, and my friend came in unannounced to see how things are going, and the woman was literally sleeping on the floor of the booth in the shopping mall. So I get it. You never want to hire out of desperation. One of the things we train on is how to make hiring cultural. A lot of companies only hire when they need someone, and they end up hiring out of desperation, and they end up making mistakes when you bring someone on. So are you running recruiting bonuses with your team? Is your team involved? Are you having contests? I've worked with companies that the reps didn't even know there was a recruiting, like a employee referral kind of bonus. For me, it was always cultural, and a client of mine is doing that now to great success. They just started doing it. They're in like WhatsApp, and they send messages, and they're mentioning like, hey, thanks Billy for Mary. We just hired Mary. Mary starts this weekend. Everybody, let's hear it for Mary. And I used to do contests where like every interview you got me, I gave you a raffle ticket. And at the end of the month, we'd raffle off like a PlayStation or something like that. I would put it on text messages. We tend to text out or WhatsApp our teams, and I would do it for recruiting too. I mean, you can place an ad. The thing about an ad is people tend to, some of them may be great that come in, but a lot of them may be like unemployable. They just bounce around from job to job to job.
Yep.
And when you have, it's one thing for a home show where you have 8 or 10 reps working, but if you have a booth in a hardware store for a weekend and that person doesn't show up, you're kind of, if they're not dependable, it becomes a big problem. So my thing with recruiting, and again, like you and I both know, that could be another hour talk that we have on recruiting, because that's the big bugaboo for most companies. How do I get good people in? And the short answer for me is you don't fix it in a day. It's something that's got to become cultural, that everybody's involved with in your company. And like I said, there's ways to do it. Contests, bonuses. We had a client that had a $1,000 referral bonus for canvas reps, $1,000, and a lot of the canvassers didn't even know that it existed. So it's not cultural at that point. Nobody even knows about it. So it's the biggest thing for me.
Well,
as a manager, it should be part of every day.
Yeah. Oh, and I think the big thing about that here too is that you're giving people weird hours, nights and weekends to do these home shows. So it is harder to recruit just because you've limited your talent pool like that. The other aspect of it is making sure that you're obviously giving them enough hours to keep them around,
Right.
is a big thing there as well. And making sure that there's a base salary and all that kind of stuff that's going to keep them, working with you. I think that kind of leads into, Joseph, you had another question here about just what other home shows, what are shows besides, just those normal home shows and state fairs and stuff like that there too. It's you almost want to hire someone, and that, after you have all those shows lined out, so you can keep them busy. If you're just going to randomly call them up and that you're working the show, they're not going to be trained. They're not going to have the systems, they're not going to understand and remember that something changed in your organization. You have to hire people for this role. So anything you can speak to that, Chris, with just like what can you do when you've got 3 weeks of lag in between the next event to make sure that this person is sharp, and what else do you have them doing in the meantime?
Here's something event reps don't want to hear, but I can tell you what some companies are doing that we're working with. And since a lot of companies don't have canvas departments now, guess what they're offering to event reps? Why don't you go out and knock on doors around our installation? Because honestly, the pitch is very similar. The process is very similar. But that's one way to keep event reps busy, is to have them do like brand ambassador or canvas type work, which again, 90% of event reps don't want to hear, but that's an option if you want to stay busy and make money. Some companies will have them come in and do training, but that's paid training. So you're paying them when they're not generating any leads, which can be difficult for some companies. So I think that is a way that you can keep event reps busy. And when I ran canvas departments, we had certain event reps that like canvassing. So when there were no shows, they would just hop in a canvas van and go out with our team. And that's a great way to keep them busy. But do they want to do it? That's the question.
Well, I think there is so many events that happen around every metro. And it's just about compiling all of them together to determine. And sometimes the problem is there's more than one at the same weekend. And that makes other issues come up here. But it's worth it to be able to kind of, use that as the baseline overall to keep people busy. But just like you had briefly mentioned that of like a little pop-up at a hardware store, those are additional things that you can do during the week as well. Just kind of try to partner with other organizations.
Certain areas have different challenges too. Like if you're in Florida, you could probably have outdoor events all year. I'm on Long Island in storm number 2 this week. 12-degree weather, you kind of lose the outdoor stuff. But you have to get creative. A friend of mine just said, I'm jealous of our friend in California because they have outdoor events all year. So some areas it's a little easier maybe to keep people busy. Outdoor concerts and that kind of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So Nina was asking just any experience advertising a booth specifically over like a radio ad.
Yeah, the thing with radio ads is they can be expensive. You'd have to look at the cost of the ad and what kind of return you get on it. If you have, like we talked before about trying to keep your budget 15% or under, right? That's the goal for a lot of companies. So if it fits into your budget and you want to give it a try, why not? But I would want to know how many, what they're charging, how many people it reaches. 'Cause radio is a broad term. Am I on the top morning radio show in the network, or am I on some AM station that 6 people listen to? That becomes important. So what's the cost and what's the return?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I think that comes with, you're also marketing people to go to a broad home show, that you're also driving people to, a show that you might not be getting their lead information. They might have forgotten about you by the time they're like, yeah, we should go to that home show. Versus, just as you mentioned, driving people to your office, your showroom, for us, even a specific event like that, or to we have other companies that are still doing the restaurants and driving them to a restaurant for an event. You're able to still kind of go off of that brand recognition over at that restaurant for a seminar or whatever that looks like to kind of get them in the door. But
it's one of the things too, when you talk about like a radio, you don't really control who's listening. Like what's the market area of the radio? If you're doing stuff with your existing client list and things like that, or customer list, that's going to be a more targeted spend of your money, which might be better than a radio ad.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. So, well, I think we have a lot more discussions that obviously just diving into the whole recruiting bit as we kind of we talked about prior to this thing. I think there's a lot more to tackle on that side of things as regarding that, and I think having you on to talk about canvassing as well. So after this webinar is done, you'll see a poll and you'll see a survey here, and just, I mean, I would love to hear your responses from just what you thought of this webinar, but other topics that you might want to hear about as well. Because if you're really interested in the canvassing and the recruiting aspect of it, we'll definitely put something together here.
If you want to like look at, is there a recruiting problem? Like I just worked in Cleveland and I couldn't sit down inside McDonald's because they didn't have enough. I couldn't sit down and have a cup of coffee because they didn't have enough people to have the dining room open, And I would tell you, it's a little plug for me, but like I wrote a 2,000-word article on LinkedIn about recruiting. If you go to my page, it's on there. And I don't even feel like I scratched the surface on recruiting with 2,000 words. I mean, that's such a big issue for many companies right now.
Yeah. Well, I think diving into that, we'll post a link, to that here as well. But yeah, and Chris, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you and have you help them and come into their organization here too? What's the best way to get in contact with you?
I mean, you could go to tonyhoty.com. I work for Tony Hoty. And my email is easy to remember. It's chris@tonyhoty.com. So, and even if you're not looking to have us come out, just reach out if you have a question. I answer questions all the time. We believe in service. This way, if you are ready to have me come out or help you with something, we'll even have a little bit of a relationship. But feel free to just shoot me questions if you have any. It's my pleasure to answer them. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris, for spending time with us today, and hope everyone got a lot out of the conversation here too, which I know I did. And I'm not even going out there and doing this stuff. So hopefully you all did as well. So again, thank you so much, Chris, for your time and your wisdom you share with us today. And as I mentioned before, we'll send this recording off here as well, and with Chris's contact information as well. Again, thank you so much, Chris, for your time today.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sean, and your company, right? Contractor appointments. It's much. I love getting out and speaking, so it's great. Yeah. I appreciate it. I got to speak today, and I didn't have to leave the house, which is a good thing.
That's why I love the webinar, the video format. It's just awesome. We can continually meet amazing people throughout the country.
Yeah, it's awesome. So, and thanks everybody that tuned in. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody. See you guys all later.